Again, I don't think I introduced myself before. I'm Nancy Morris, and I'm the Director of Communications at the Maine Health Management Coalition. And for the last year, I've had the privilege of working with the City of Portland's Joint Labor Management Committee. They actually started here at our annual symposium last year. They came and heard TRE speak. They spoke over there. Now they spread a little. And they are going to tell you about some amazing journey that they just took over the last year, in my opinion anyway. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about what it felt like from my perspective to be part of this too, because I had the mic. Anyway, I myself was covered under a city benefit package for very many years. My father was on the police force, and he had many achievements in the 25 years that he served in the New York City Police Department. He held almost every rank from patrolman to chief, and then left the city police department because it was between him and his best friend to become the head of police, and he didn't want his best friend to lose that position, so my father became the superintendent of the state police. And so, and my father had many achievements while he was in the New York City Police Department, none of which I knew about from my father, but rather that I learned through the years from different people who recognized my rather unique maiden name. And so the only thing I ever heard my father say that he was proud of in his job at the New York City Police Department was that he was able to bring home a great benefit package to take care of us with. And when I was in 5th grade, I used that benefit package an awful lot. I had strep throat a lot, all growing up, and 3 years after the rest of my contemporaries, I got my tonsils out. My mother booked it so it would occur right before Christmas, and I wouldn't miss any school. And so I had my tonsils taken out, and then I believe it must have been a follow-up visit on February 13th that I went in to see my primary care physician, and my primary care physician suggested that skinny Nancy probably should have a flu shot because she was prone to get sick. And so on February 13th, I had a flu shot. Well, either late on the 13th or early morning on the 14th, I woke up and went to leave my bedroom, and I swung my legs around, went to touch my feet. You know, I'm going slow, but you'll see I'm going to go a lot slower in a minute, to get out of bed, and I got stuck, just absolutely frozen, like a chair, in my bed. And I guess I must have cried or something, but somehow my father knew, my big, beefy father, who has the finger that you see at basketball games, like that big hand, that's my father's hand, okay? That they modeled that after. My father's big and strong, and he couldn't get my legs to freeze, or they couldn't get them fixed. And so back in those days, you called the doctor, and he came to your house. And the doctor came and said, you know, it's time for Nancy to go to the emergency room. And I was admitted, and about 10 days later, I left and was back in action, living the blissful life of an 11-year-old. And everything was going well. And that June, I was riding my bicycle and met a speeding motorcycle. Was thrown up in the air and bounced on the pavement a couple of times, and then eventually slid under the car. A friend of mine promptly ran home to my house to get my dad and knocked on the door, and then my father said the scariest thing that he ever saw, even though he was a New York City policeman, or the scariest feeling he ever had in his life occurred when my friend told my father, "You better hurry up quick, I think Nancy's dead." So my father ran to the corner of Clintonville Street, where I was holding court with most every kid in town, watching them try to get this little kid out from underneath the car. And the policeman who was who had arrived before my dad, who was waiting for the ambulance to come, pulled my father aside and said, "I know what hospital is coming, and I don't think you want your daughter going to that hospital." And since when I was brought into the hospital, frozen with Guillain-Barré, I was left alone for a little while and met another patient who was dressed up as Santa Claus on February 14th. And she, unfortunately, thought it was important to shake me. She must have been amazed to see a kid in the shape of a chair, I have to admit. But she attacked me in the hospital, and I think that might have ran through my father's mind when when the policeman suggested that that wasn't a very good hospital to go to. So the policeman on duty talked to the ambulance driver who worked for the hospital and explained to him that he wasn't going back to that hospital, that they were going to go to a hospital with a better reputation. And so then I spent until next Christmas vacation getting better. And I had great care at that hospital. And when I was released, my father set up somewhat of a military program to rehabilitate me. And he also set up a fun program, which was a contest for me, sort of a game where I had to go visit all my neighbors. And because, again, I was out of school, and heaven knows that wasn't good, and so I had to interview my different neighbors, but it required me to go up steps, it required me to use my walker and to use my crutches to get going. So my father took his responsibility as a guardian of a patient to make sure I did what I needed to do to get better. And I'm better today, and I walk today because of all the great care that I had and the support from my family afterwards. And I think it's important for you to know that because, again, it's not enough to just get great benefits. You got to get those great benefits from good providers, and you've got to work to follow those instructions to get those best results. And I think as we've worked through the city of Portland, I've been thinking about my father all the time. And I've seen so much of my father in the men and women that I've met in the city who are so proud to be able to work for the city of Portland. I also know something else, that they were the right people to start on this process of changing up a benefit package to make more sense. The police and firemen in the city of Portland take many of the same patients over and over again to the hospital. They don't have my father or sometimes any family members who can help them. And those police and firemen are the people who help them. I can tell you that Mary, who's not able to be here today, when we talked about how you can change up contract terms to start to get what you need, she revealed to us that she had worked at the Barron Center for many years and tried to help their patients from being readmitted, wasn't able to get any response from the clinicians in the area until CMS changed their regulations. And now they're working with the area hospitals to try and stop readmissions. I can tell you that there's every single person who works in the city of Portland realizes that they do something to help promote the health of Maine. And through this benefit design, they want to do more. They want to share what they come up with the rest of the city of Portland, explain why they're doing what they're doing, and that they hope that you'll start to adopt the changes that they want to adopt so that our clinicians will have enough of a base so that they know that they can thrive economically as they make the change to make our healthcare benefits better. So, right now I'd like to introduce some of our panelists. We have the very lovely Janice Kimmel, Benefits Manager superior from the city of Portland. She's going to come up and tell you a little bit about her story. We have Scott Willett also with us. Scott's a very interesting gentleman, and you're going to hear his story too. And Scott Pelletier, who is also with us, and Mike Miles. So let me first have Janice come up, and Janice is going to tell you a little bit about why the city decided to start on a program of changing up benefits.
Thank you, Nancy. This is my first time speaking in this large a venue, so bear with me, and I have no prepared remarks, so this is just going to come from my heart, okay? Back in 2003, first of all, just a little bit of background, we do have a labor management committee, so we have 8 different collective bargaining units in the city. There's representatives from each of those bargaining units sitting on that committee, as well as management representatives across the city. So understanding that venue, we've had that in place for quite some time. In the early 2000s, we really did experience some double-digit premium increases. We were really working with our group to help them understand what was driving that. And we had the benefit back then of having Frank Johnson from the state of Maine come down and speak to our group, and the benefit of Steve Gove from the Maine Municipal Employees Health Trust. And they were telling us that they were members of the Maine Health Management Coalition. And Frank, I see you in the audience. You probably remember I came up to your office and we sat down and you showed me all the wonderful data reports we could get from the Maine Health Management Coalition. And so we felt it was really important. We were looking and seeing these other major public sector entities engaged in this process. Frank and Steve were encouraging us to join. And when I saw all that data, because I like things that are real concrete and black and white, I was convinced. And I think Frank probably remembers, I said, wow, this is amazing stuff. So we became members of the Maine Health Management Coalition back in 2003. And so we did all we could do, and when I say we, it was the benefits division, myself and a co-worker, who tried to put messages out there that the Health Coalition was generating in terms of consumerism. We had brochures out there, we did health tips of the day, we integrated those messages within that. Meanwhile, I was observing through all this time as Frank's group especially led the way towards the tiering of benefits and benefits design to have their members seek out providers with high quality. So speeding up and fast forwarding, because I don't want to drag this on, but when my new boss came on board, Mike Miles, a couple of years ago, we were looking again at health insurance costs. We were faced with the Affordable Care Act. We were all hearing about the Cadillac tax. I went to a meeting, I told our group what we were facing, where we would be potentially in 2018 if we didn't do something. And so we all knew we had to do something, but we want to keep this wonderful benefit design we've got. But we want to make sure we're keeping costs under control. So it was my suggestion when our management team met that we start to follow what we're members of. Let's become part of what these other major public sector employers are doing. And so that's when we went to our Labor Management Committee, brought this forward, and we had the wonderful privilege of having Nancy Morris engage with our group. And I think you're going to hear from Scott Willett and Scott Pelletier how we all love Nancy. We love her stories. She breaks up some of the discussions when it gets a little bit tense. Nancy's there for us. And that's my story in this, Nancy.
Good morning. I'm Scott Willett. I'm the president of the Labor Trades Union at the City of Portland. It's not the biggest union by far, but probably one of the most vocal. I don't know, the police department and fire department tends to be very vocal as well. My story started at the city 6 years ago. I was hired as a systems and lighting technician an electrician that works on the traffic lights. So hey, don't blame me. I put in what the engineering staff tells me to put in. I shake my head too sometimes when I see the way these things work. My wife made sure to tell all the single ladies here, yes, I am taken. I know I look like a prize, but it actually started a little bit longer ago than that. I'm retired from the U.S. Navy and the Navy Reserves, and I was part of a program that actually took care of the people. The military was a wonderful program. I didn't get unnecessary surgeries. I didn't get unnecessary care or treatment. And when I needed penicillin, I didn't get a Z-Pack because that's what was pushed onto the medical field at the time. I got penicillin because I wasn't allergic to it and did the job. Strep throat, another common thing that just I had it every year, especially when I quit smoking. I was working at Bath Iron Works when I quit smoking, and the reason was they came up and handed the union there a package saying, here's going to be your benefit package, and if you're a smoker, you're going to pay this much out of your paycheck. You're going to be a non-smoker, you only pay this much out of your paycheck. Time to quit smoking. Time to do the right thing. The uniqueness of the City of Portland's Labor Management Committee, as I got involved in the union here, was that every union has a vote. Management has a vote. It doesn't go through unless we all agree. Janice was trying to herd cats. You've got each of us different union leaders, and you've got management, and we still go to these meetings, and it's a long process. It's not simple. There's no easy way around it. We all want better health. Anybody here not? We all want better health for ourselves, for our families, for our employees. We do have what will be considered in 2018 or 2019 a Cadillac plan under the new Health Care Act. That means a 40% increase in premiums, a 40% tax, excise tax, which means that it's more out of my pocket, the city's pocket, the citizens of Portland's pocket. The problem with that is we can't afford to hire enough people to do the work because we're busy paying benefits. The unions don't want to give up the great benefit plan we have, and we don't want to pay more. So the only way to do it is we all have to sit down and come together as a group. Without Nancy's leadership in this group, we wouldn't be where we are today. No, we don't have a plan yet. No, it hasn't been voted on by all 8 units of the unions in the city. We are getting there very quickly. We're designing a package that includes wellness benefits. So in other words, gym memberships, things that actually count. And the way this plan is going to work is you go to your primary care physician, and he says, you've got high blood pressure, these are the steps you need to take. Here's your medication. I want you to go down and talk to our nutritional counselor. Talk to the nutritional counselor, get some ideas. You get some ideas from the nutritional counselor, you also get to, well, we're going to have you put on this exercise regimen. It's real simple. Most old-time family physicians, mine included, will look at you and say, okay, your cholesterol is a little high. If you don't take these steps, you're going on medication. Being ex-military, it's like, yes sir, doc, right away. I followed his rules, haven't had a problem with cholesterol since. The hypertension, I'd probably bring it on myself. Most of us do. Here's a little bit of a family history of it. But along with the hypertension, take the proper steps. What it does for all of us is it reduces all of our costs when everybody has bought in and is on board with it. It's really easy to go to the doctor and say, hey, just give me that pill over there and I'm good. It's a lot harder to say, well, okay, I can take some steps and be off of that pill and do a lot better. What we need to do as a group, and whether you're the CEO of a company or a union worker or just anyone on the street, you need to think, how can I help myself? What's the best way to help my family? I want to see my grandkids, which I've already got a couple. I want to see my great-grandkids. I want to have fun with them. I want to live my life, and I want to make it easy. And I don't want to pay an arm and a leg. Currently, the family members pay a significant amount out of their paycheck every week toward health care. We need to lower that cost because families can't afford to work for the city of Portland. The city pays a big part of the premium, the family members do. So as a union leader, I'm trying to find a way to make it the best possible health care for our members at the best possible rates for our members. And it also allows the city to hire more of us so we can complain about working conditions and everything else that unions are famous for. The one thing the unions do stand for is safety. And we try on a regular basis to make sure we have the safest possible working conditions. Sometimes as an electrician, I have to give you a live electrical box to troubleshoot. What goes through my head is, do I need rubber gloves for this? Am I actually going to be moving live wires around? Am I going to be making it more confusing for the people looking at the traffic signals? And most of you have probably waved at me at one time or another working on the signals. Usually it's one finger at a time. I prefer to think of it as half the Verizon sign. But the safety of each individual, the safety of each one of us. Scott Pelletier is a detective lieutenant at the city of Portland. He knows what's safe and what isn't safe in his jobs. He tries to teach the younger officers on a regular basis how to make your life safe, how to come home safely every day. The city's got this attitude that we want everyone to arrive in the same condition, to go home in the same condition they have arrived in. And everyone in this room needs to realize this, whether you're a student, whether you're working class, or whether you're in charge and the one looking at the bottom line. If we all do this, our costs will drop dramatically. If we all take the steps necessary and realize that instead of bargaining for the best possible thing for my little group, we do what's best for all of us, we'll go very far in reducing the cost of health care. And if by chance we can set an example that works with the City of Portland employees, then maybe the City of South Portland will say, hey, they're saving money. What are they doing right? It's new, it's uncharted waters for us. A lot of us still want to be able to go to the doctor whenever we feel like it and pick our own doctor when we want to. It's not going to be possible. I may lose my primary care physician whom I trust because he's part of a practice that doesn't have things available like x-ray machines, labs. He sends me out, I have to go. He's a great doctor, he's the best one I've ever had. I'm going to hate losing him. But a personal sacrifice I may have to make is to go to a place that also has great doctors. But I'll be able to get everything taken care of in one place. And if I need nutrition counseling, the nutrition counselor's right on staff. Ready to go, ready to help me with whatever my particular needs or my family needs are. Nancy?
Good morning. My name's Scott Pelletier. I've been with the city 25 years. I'm a lieutenant with the police department, and I'm the guy that you say is responsible for when the lights aren't working. Usually it's us out there, and you're waving to us more often than you're waving at Scott. So that's why we wear bulletproof vests when we go to work. 25 years ago, when I joined the police department, and joined the city, if you will. I never looked at insurance benefits as anything more than that's what I get along with my pay. I was single, 25 years younger than I am right now. Thought I was high speed, bulletproof, Teflon coated. I didn't think about medical costs or even medical issues. Not unlike people that are coming into the city's workforce now, or anybody's workforce. At that time, you're happy to have a job. It doesn't seem as important. Most people are, don't use the system that much, so it doesn't seem to be a product that you pay for. If you look at it, our healthcare benefits are a product, no different than any other product that you would purchase in your life. It is the only product that I can think of that we accept mediocre, not up to par, or like Mr. O'Neill said earlier, we don't demand excellence. You can go and get treated for something, but if you have to go back and be treated for the same thing, our insurance company pays for that. You know, you would no sooner purchase a meal that you didn't order and pay for it. You would speak up, you would say something, and negotiate whether or not you're gonna pay or not pay. And I would bet that you're not gonna pay for what you didn't order. I believe it's the culture. When I came in 25 years ago, I accepted the fact that we had insurance and that no matter what happens, it's gonna get paid for. As I got older, had a family, became active in the union, I realized it was more than a bargaining chip when we were trying to negotiate wages. In fact, I never want to take my child or my wife or my loved one or even myself to a location, to a doctor or anywhere that I'm not going to get excellent care or the proper medications or anything like this. I don't want to hear later that, I'm sorry, we made a mistake, and that could jeopardize, you know, your loved ones. Think about this. If we've got to the point now where we accept the fact if you have gone into the hospital to have surgery done on something on your left arm, prior to you having the surgery, the doctor comes in and meets with you, and you take a Sharpie, and they ask you, what are you having done today? Well, I hope you know, seeing that you're the doctor, but I'm having surgery on my arm. Which arm? My left arm. Don't you know that I'm having it on my left arm? I want you to take this marker and put an X on your left arm, and then you initial. Now, I'm not saying that doctors aren't doing a good job, but something happened in our system that the patient actually has to sit with the doctor after all the tests you've taken, the x-rays, whatever, you pre-op, and you still have to initial the arm that you're going to have surgery on. Somewhere down the road, they did surgery on the wrong arm. And that's where we've come to now. I don't think that's acceptable. It's a culture that's gone through. What I hope with, once we met the crazy lady over there, Nancy, I mean, you know, thank God we only meet once or twice a month. Because if we did more, I mean, it's exhausting. I mean, she has so much energy that it's amazing. But when I would like to think, I've been here 25 years. I may not see the rewards of this, but I want the newer or the young people that come into the workforce, like I did, to have a different culture. I want their culture to be that the care that I get, I'm going to get excellent care. I'm not going to need to go back to the hospital because I received an infection. The culture that I didn't have when I came in, I want to pass a new culture on so they can be high-speed, bulletproof, Teflon coated, and not worry about the things that now that I've worried about once it took me 5, 10, 15 years to go in and start realizing that, you know, there is a way. It is a product. We do pay for it. And I agree with Mr. O'Neill. I mean, I'm not a rich person. I mean, I'm a civil servant. I work hard for my money. But I believe that if we collectively demand a certain type of product, it's going to reflect in premiums. If we get better care, quality care, the first time, it has to cut costs. It has to, because it's less times that you're seeing that doctor. So, I mean, I'm no mathematician. I'm a policeman. That's why I'm a policeman. But I would encourage each and every one of you in your community. I work with you know, people in different trades. You know, Scott is, you know, from the public works side, and we have people from the Barron Center, and we have the firefighters, and, you know, come on, firefighters, they couldn't even show up today, but they're the people. I'll tell you this right now, I'll tell you two things about firemen, okay? They're the only set of people that you would allow to come into your house, break your windows, cut holes in your roof, and you thank them on the way out. True, okay? But the reason God made policemen, so firemen would have heroes as well. But I'll leave you with this. It's not easy work. Everyone thinks that somebody else should do the work, when in fact we all have a stake in it. Not often, and I'm very proud to be part of this coalition. Who'd have thought that? A year ago, when I came to this very symposium, I was sitting thinking, why would I want to be part of that? Other than unions sitting down negotiating contracts with management, we meet, all of us now, not just negotiations for contracts. We do it every month now. We're all at the same table. So it's more than once a year or 2 years, however long your contracts are, that we actually sit and interact. And it's not always easy, and it's frustrating. Some people don't want to say anything. Some of us say too much at times, and I'm a policeman. I'm going to tell you how I feel, and that's the way it goes. But I think it is a model. If you don't get involved with where you work or think that you have a voice, you're not doing yourself or your family any service. So my hat's off to the Maine Health Coalition, Management Coalition, and I'm sure you guys can ask us questions, so please be blunt, because we certainly will. But thank you very much.
My name is Mike Miles. I'm the HR director with the City of Portland. I've been doing HR work now for 3.5 decades, and my only union exposure has been with the City of Portland. Not just this time, but once before. I worked for the city back in the 70s, in public works for a couple of years and HR for a couple of years. And so I had a little tiny bit of exposure, and I was a union president at the time. So I've been on both sides of the bargaining table. So I come to this issue with some appreciation for how difficult it is to be talking about health insurance, to be making changes, to be making significant changes in health insurance, given the fact that management has its interests. There's 8 labor unions that have to be unanimous in order to make changes. It's a daunting sort of task. And justifiably so. As a former union person a long time ago, what I understand is that when labor people talk to their members, there is an ingrained sense that change means loss. We all know that. I mean, that's the pattern. And so to approach organizational change relative to health insurance with that sort of blueprint that's in our DNA if we've been in union organizations, it requires some different thinking. And so there's 2 different pieces of thinking that I think have been instrumental in the process that we're working through. And it is a process, and we're not through, and success is not assured, but we're on a very good path. And the 2 pieces of thinking that I want to refer to are, first, traditional bargaining is positional bargaining. People make proposals, people react to the proposals, and it's 2 sides, and it's divided. It's not a unified sort of view, and it's oppositional, and it's really easy to get bogged down in something as complex as health insurance, and particularly in something as complex as new paradigms in health insurance and health care, and in being part of a process of transforming the practice of health care. That's really what we're about here. We're part of this larger sort of process. And so what we decided to do in approaching our discussions with our unions was to, instead of negotiating change, to co-create change, to look at this through the same eyes, with the same information, and to identify the interests that we have in common, and to create something around those common and shared interests. in a non-adversarial, well, as much as you can, in a non-adversarial sort of way. And so what that required of us was to go through a lot of education. Our management team and our unions went through, what is it, 8 or 9 3-hour sessions where we did learning about what the new paradigms are. And the group acquired some familiarity so that, at this point, if you say to the group patient-centered medical homes, it has meaning to most of the members of the group. They can actually talk about what that means. And similar sorts of concepts. And so the process that we're going through is one that is based on education, it's based on looking at shared interests, it's based on trying to find that win-win place where we improve the health of the organization, we improve the health of the individuals, we we participate in the literal transformation of how things are changing in Greater Portland. And we hopefully will have, if not less costly health insurance, then we'll slow the rate of increase. And that's probably the best we can do. And it's a venture that I have huge respect for the unions that have been part of the process as we move forward. So thank you.
As Janice mentioned, we didn't map this all out. I wanted everybody to speak from the heart, but that was a perfect tee-up for what I want to say next is this process isn't about you did it wrong or you did it wrong. It's about where we want to go and what we want to get and who we want to be and how many people we want to help. And through this process, we want to include everybody. We want, the city employees, as you heard Scott so elegantly say, want to be part of the cure. And we want to work with everybody who wants to change up the system and build a better mousetrap. So for those of you who are clinicians, you work in an environment that supports you better. The City of Portland employees are going to go out when they finalize their plan design, and we can show it publicly after their unions have seen it, to show everybody else what they've done. In the meantime, we will be talking to clinicians and asking them, is there anything we need to tweak to make sure that we improve things for you too, and we get where you think we need to go. So I want you to make sure you know that we're thinking about this in terms of how we make the city of Portland even more rocking than it is now. And then once we figure it out here, we want to share what we've done with the entire state to make Maine the way life should be. Okay, any questions? Yes? Andy Spalding, thanks, sweetie.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome. So can you just talk about how the different departments activate the kind of things that are discussed and agreed upon across the whole system, that structure?
You know what? Come on up, Scott, sure. And remind me, I want to tell you something else that's really cool when they talked about wellness.
That's an excellent question, because each one of us on the panel in the union side we speak for our members. However, we still need to sell it because it's all about votes. The bottom line is any kind of change we need to bring back. What I've learned, and it's still a work in progress when we go back to our members, is explain the benefits. Again, I mentioned that culture. Mike Miles mentioned it as well, is that whenever we talk about change, everybody says, what's it going to cost for me? Does that mean there's going to be a decrease in our benefits? When in fact it's not. Now, it's just a different way of thinking, and I think the people on this board, some have a little bit more success than others. It's a work in progress. For me, for the superior officers who are older, primarily in the police department, I'm having an easier time about it because they get it. For somebody maybe in the trades who comes in at a lower wage rate, perhaps, when you're talking about, is it gonna cost me more when I'm already paying this much, it's different. So we each have our own little issues that we have to do, but it's all about communication, and Nancy, and I mentioned Nancy, we all mention Nancy, but her staff, I know Nancy can't do this without her staff, because she certainly can't run the slide projector and things like that, or the computer, or even run the data. She can't do any of that. There's people doing it. So, but all joking aside, the coalition has a lot of experience, or it appears to be a lot of experience to us in helping us craft the message, and we've been successful so far. Now, there's been no votes for anything yet because we're still in the infancy stages of getting things done, but it's all about communications and how you present the message.
So I am a little that way, but anyway, but it does, again, point to, this isn't about, it isn't one person, it isn't anybody's done anything wrong, it's how do we take the strengths that we can all bring to the table to make our system better. But Andy, I wanted to make sure, Andy, by the way, if you don't know, has been working on starting wellness programs in the smaller communities in Maine, and has done a phenomenal job. He's getting national attention for his work. And I just wanted to tell you, Andy, that was one of the coolest things that we have been looking at a value-based insurance plan to clear the path for those evidence-based services. We've been looking at having some place to slow people down when there's an opportunity to have several choices so they can make the choice that's right for them. And then some barriers on services that may not always be necessary, although sometimes they're ordered. And so we want people to start and think. That's what we're thinking about. But we also want to have an overlay of wellness. We also want to look at slimming down potentially some of the network to get some of the providers to be more closely working with the city. For instance, we might want to capture data about why some of the problems are happening. And so from a wellness perspective, we can work to maybe potentially re-engineer a job, maybe get the policemen lighter but equally effective bulletproof vests potentially, maybe change where the computers are in the cars, so on and so forth, so that we start to see not only take care of the issues, but figure out what the root causes of the issues are when they're prevalent, and work to prevent those from ever happening again. And we're getting
I just wanted to add that, to further Scott's response, that we haven't really talked about how we leave the room and start talking to our people. And by the way, the management has to talk to the council, and we have to sell them as well. So there's a lot of selling that goes on everywhere. But my thinking is that when we get to that point, we need to think collectively about how we can be most effective. And my guess is that having each single union leader go back to their troops might not be the most effective way of doing it. It may be that the union leaders will agree that 3 or 4 of them will go to each meeting and to provide reinforcement and to provide the sense of collective understanding that this is a far more effective thing to do for all of us. But that's a discussion we've yet to have. But we're going to do everything we can to make this successful for both sides.
I want to close and tell you about a little conversation that I had during this whole process with a fireman. So I know what Scott says, but anyway. And this fireman, after they learned about the work that Dr. Bremer had done in New Jersey, came up to me and said, in Washington, D.C., they're using the firemen to help patients who keep going in all the time, to help them either with their issues with loneliness or helping them take better care of themselves, and it's been really successful. As we go through the process, please take a look at us, too, and see what we can do to help all of us get even better. And so again, I think that's another output of this whole process is we're just looking at everything fresh and say, how can we redo it to get where we want to go and make it as beneficial for as many of us as possible, because we're all part of the cure. Any other questions?